Hello and welcome to this special interview as Airtime celebrates flight attendants all around the world. My name is Michael Jonga and joining us today is Gerardo Enrique. Originally from Venezuela, Gerardo is currently based in Riga, Latvia and is a cabin crew member with Air Baltic. Having spent 2 years in the industry, Gerardo actively supports and promotes the roles of flight attendants by sharing aviation content across his social media. Today, we'll look to find out more about his aviation journey and how he came to join our industry. Gerardo, thank you for joining us here at Airtime.
Thank you guys for having me. It's such a cool project and I'm so happy to be part of it.
So Gerardo, we're really excited to speak to you today, and what I find fascinating is your story and some of the work that you're doing today. Now, you've mentioned that you're originally from South America, from Venezuela, and now you found yourself in Europe doing something that you love. And something we focus on here at Airtime is telling the whole story. Can you tell us how you found yourself in aviation and what led you to join the industry?
Of course, it all started back in 2019. I was working in a shoe store at the time and I got fired because I couldn't sell any shoes at all. I was not the greatest. And then I found myself, searching for jobs. And at the time, my flatmate was a pilot and he recommended me to join an airline. And I was like, I don't know if it's a good fit for me. I don't think I will be very good at it. But time went on, this airline was still searching for people and I didn't have a job still. So on the last day that you could apply, I shoot my shot, and 6 months into the selection process, I joined in the Madrid airport working in the information department. And by then I started gathering like all of this interest and all of this like passion. And I started doing my research on aviation in general. And 6 months later, I got into my first airline. And then COVID happened and we all got fired. And then one entire year went by of me just trying and, keep pushing and trying to gather more information about aviation and knowing about airlines that were searching for people. But at the time, no airline was hiring because, of course, the pandemic was still very, very much, very harsh. And then 1 year later, I joined my second airline, which is Lauda. It's a subsidiary by Ryanair. And 6 months later, I decided to apply to my current airline, which is the happiest I've ever been. And it's the flag carrier for Latvia, which is Air Baltic.
Now, something I find quite exciting about the industry is how dynamic it can be and how people and professionals in the industry get the chance to share passions across individual sectors of aviation. And looking at your story, in a relatively short period of time, you amassed quite a significant social media following. And did you expect such a reaction from your followers?
No, not at all. I started recording this aviation content back in 2019 when this selection process, my first airline was going on. But it didn't have any sort of impact, really. I was just posting YouTube videos about myself, explaining like, okay, I just went through this call with the recruiter, or I just did this and this and that for my airline. And then it sort of blew up with my current airline, with Air Baltic, because they already knew that I did social media from the past. And we both sort of agreed on making one video together. And then this video just completely blew up. I think it has over 5 or 6 million views on TikTok, and then from there, my personal social media as well started gaining this a lot more viewing from other people. And nowadays, I don't know. For example, in Finland, some people tell me like, "Hey, you're the guy from the TikTok videos," and I'm like, "Hi, yes, I am." Like, to me, it's pretty crazy, but it's super super cool that it got this. Massive people to like what I do. I think it's super fun.
Now, I think that's quite a unique experience or reaction from people in the industry, recognizing you through the content that you share. And on that note, could you tell us one of your favorite stories on board or experiences?
Yes, of course. My favorite story was on a flight from Riga to Stockholm. I was going there on a layover. And I had this couple of girls in my flight, and I had really just no idea that they knew who I was. But I remember one of these girls had bright pink hair. So in the middle of the flight, I just went to her and I told her, "Hey, I love your hair, by the way." And she's like, "Oh, thank you so much." And I was, I just went on by my day. I kept working, all of that stuff. And then at the end of the flight, everyone disembarked, and these two girls were still in the cabin. So when they're coming out, they told me that they recognized me from my videos, and then they gave me this chocolate with this note that was like something along the lines of the TikTok star or something or something like this. And then he put like best steward of 2022, something like this. And it was so nice. And then they asked for a picture, and of course we had time, so of course I said yes. And yeah, it definitely felt so nice to see, that people just appreciate and recognize what I do and what I do with my airline as well.
And could you tell us what you enjoy most about your job?
What do I enjoy the most? I think definitely I enjoy helping people and just making everyone feel good and feel comfortable, especially because the way that I see it is I like to treat passengers as if they were my aunt, because my aunt is not like a super fan of traveling, and she's very anxious. She gets very stressed. And I like to take care of people as if it was my aunt, you know? So when I see passengers like very stressed, very nervous, the first thing I think is like, they could be your relatives, they could be your family members. So let's treat them as such. And to me, the most gratifying thing is definitely when everyone is disembarking the aircraft and everyone says like, "Thank you, it was such a great flight." I don't know, for us, like the entire crew just feels great. And also definitely the layovers that we get to experience a whole wide, just so many things that I have experienced in such a short period of time that I never thought that I would have, coming from Venezuela. And then, just calling my aunt and telling like, "Okay, I'm in Dubai now." Like it's crazy to me to think about.
Now, I think that's so interesting because you're halfway around the world and you found a niche in aviation. You're pursuing your passion here. And sometimes that pursuit can come with challenges or barriers that get in the way of your career. Have you encountered any so far?
I think the biggest challenge would be to be so far away from home. Since I moved to Europe, I haven't been able to see my family for almost 4 years now. And it's very hard because, of course, when you join an airline, you have to just give yourself fully in. And this as well means relocating. So at one point, you just start to learn to live with all of your big bags, and you're already becoming an expert of like, okay, just putting everything in the bag, this goes here, this goes there, and then off to a new adventure. So yeah, of course, it is a challenge to be so far away and to constantly be moving. But I think it definitely, for me, has way more ups than it does downs. But yeah, I think it's quite hard sometimes to be just so far away from home.
And on that note, what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've encountered in your role as a flight attendant?
Well, especially in social media, there is a couple. The first one being, of course, I treat my job very high up. I take great pride in what we do and like the training that we go through. And then, there's people that just say, "Why are you so happy of just serving coffee on an airplane?" And of course, most people think that that is all that we do. But I try as well with my videos to bring light to the fact that sometimes we're waking up at 3 in the morning, running to the airport, doing all of the checks in the aircraft for everything to be safe. We have to secure the cabin. We have to know a ton of procedures in our head. We have to be ready in case of an evacuation. Always keep in mind in case we have to do first aid and all of this stuff that people don't usually see, because thank God most of our flights are pretty normal and everything goes according to plan. But if something goes wrong or if something goes south, we are the first one that have to act, and we are the ones that we have to know how to do everything by the book. So it's not just serving coffee on an airplane. There is a lot more that goes into that. And another misconception I would say is definitely uh, we are just traveling the world and that is all that we do. Of course, it is part of our job, but as well on a daily basis, our operations are also going to one destination, being there for 1 hour, 45 minutes, and then coming back. So the most that we can do is just go to the airport and just run to the duty free and buy something.
Now, you've mentioned safety, which is such an important aspect of our industry. And everyone in the industry, from pilots to cabin crew to engineers, technicians, and professionals, they all play their part almost on a minute-by-minute basis to ensure such a high caliber of safety. From the time a passenger walks into their departure airport to the time they walk out of their arriving airport. But even with that said, you still encounter a number of nervous flyers, so to say. And how do you approach that? What advice do you give to the nervous flyers that you meet?
I always say to people, if you are a nervous flyer, please just tell the cabin crew, tell the flight attendants that you are nervous. And I swear to you, most of the time we all talk to each other and we're like, hey, the passenger on, I don't know, 15 Delta is a nervous flyer, please take care of them. So if we're 3 or 4 people in the cabin and it's a long flight, every 10, 15 minutes, one of us is going to be like, hey, is everything okay? Do you need anything? How are you feeling? Like, of course, when we have 147 passengers on board, we cannot have this one-on-one experience with every single one of them. But if you come up to us and you're telling us that you're nervous, that you are scared of flying, we know what it feels like because we have treated with passengers like this as well. So we just want to make everyone feel safe and be like, we are here for you, and whatever happens, even if there's turbulence or something that can feel pretty scary, look at us, like we're still just walking around the cabin, just doing like we're surfing, like it's safe and everything is gonna be fine. But rely on us. That would be my advice.
Now, you previously mentioned being prepared for any and all situations, this be before a flight, during or after a flight. And, on that note, have you encountered any emergencies like a rocky flight or turbulence? And how did you approach that?
Well, I think one of my biggest scares would definitely have to be when I was landing in Dubrovnik in Croatia. The aircraft was just going like it was just going like this, just to make an example. Like it was really, really bad for landing. And whenever this happens, like the cabin crew, we just have to look at the outside conditions and like just be ready to start an evacuation. I really thought that an emergency was going to happen. So in my head, the first thing I do is like I go through all of the procedures of like, okay, what equipment do I have to take if we have to evacuate? How to open the door? I have to make sure that the slide of the door is hard and all of this stuff. And then after I reviewed everything in my head, I'm like, okay, I am very scared right now. Mm-hmm. So another thing, most of the flight attendants, we don't know each other prior to the flight. We just get to know each other in the briefing before doing our flight. And I remember I was number 2 and my number 3, the other flight attendant, I just went to her and we literally just grabbed our hands, not knowing each other from anything because we were so nervous. Like we are ready to do anything and start an evacuation, but we were so nervous. But everything came out fine in the end. No need for evacuation. Everything was perfect, but it was very scary for me, for sure.
Now, that's such an interesting story that you shared there. And it's also a reflection of how aviation can connect people across borders, people without ties before, but the industry brings them together through the platform that is aviation. And just coming back to what you shared earlier about the reactions that you've gotten from your following and how they're being impacted and inspired, you're a role model now. And would you say that happened naturally? And is it something that you intended to happen?
Well, I never really thought about it this way of even being a role model. But it is true that sometimes I get all of these comments from people, especially from South America or from Europe, that they haven't been able to fly due to different reasons, that they just enjoy seeing myself doing all of my flights and all of my layovers because they wish they could be like that. And I think my biggest advice for everyone is just, keep applying. I know getting inside of an airline is not the easiest thing. And after you get accepted, there's a ton more of things that you have to do still. There is these background checks, all of the documentation that you have to fill, medical exams, a whole another thing. Like it's like an extra. But I think that if you have this dream, just like go for it and keep trying and trying and trying until once you join your first airline, I think everything just becomes easier. You are more experienced, you know how to act in interviews, you know what to say, you know what to do. So just keep pushing. And in the meantime, what I did before joining my first airline, I was looking at YouTube videos for every single flight attendant that I could find. So to me, naturally, after I started flying, I wanted to be like that. So now that I am doing it, it's true. I realized that there's some people looking at me the way that I saw other flight attendants. So it's like a circle, you know.
And just on that aspect that you've mentioned there, do you feel that you now have the responsibility to inspire the next generation of people or people already in the industry considering becoming flight attendants or cabin crew members? Do you feel that responsibility maybe to inspire the next generation of cabin crew from Venezuela?
1,000%, I think so, because as well, I wanted to clear all of these misconceptions of what we actually do on board. So before people join, I want to warn them of like, hey, this is not as glamorous as it looks. Sometimes you have to wake up at 3 in the morning and you're gonna get to the hotel. I don't know if anything happens at 3 in the night, who knows? Like with this industry, there's so many things that can happen and you have to be prepared for everything. So I think my responsibility as well of I always try to show the good and the not so good because not every day is a 10 out of 10. Sometimes we have delays for hours. Sometimes we get our flights canceled. Sometimes we have to stay in the airport for 4 hours doing basically nothing. And then on the other hand, we can spend 3 or 4 days in Dubai or stuff like this. So not everything is so glamorous, and I want to portray both things. So I think that's my responsibility as well.
And just on that and portraying your role in the industry, what would you say is the most important aspect of what you do today?
The most important aspect, I think, is to show everyone that we are here for your safety. I think that's my biggest goal, to let everyone know that we do more than just asking if you want any drinks or snacks. Because in case of an emergency, I bet you there is no drink or snack that is going to save you. It's going to be us. No cop is going to evacuate you out of the aircraft in 90 seconds. We also have to do all of this stuff. So,
And I think the big question now is, what are you looking forward to? I mean, what is the next step for Gerardo Enrique?
to me, I definitely want to stay in the aviation field. And I always say to my colleagues and their friends that I want to be a flight attendant until my body cannot resist it anymore. And after that, I would like to be maybe an instructor, even a recruiter. Who knows? But I want to grow in my field as much as I can. This, of course, being cabin chief or senior, and then just go from there. I'm still pretty young. I'm still learning. I'm still quite fresh into the industry, but it's definitely in my goals to just grow in my area as much as I possibly can, and then just keep expanding. And as well, using my social media as my platform to just bring awareness to what we do, and yeah, just keep naturally growing and overall just growth. That's all I'm searching for, really.
And just on that aspect, we come back to how dynamic our industry can be and the diverse range of opportunities that are available for people. I mean, you can be doing one thing and experience another thing in a different sector and pursue a different passion still within aviation. Again, just a reflection of the range of opportunities that are available. And with that said, what would you say to young people or people aspiring to enter the industry, maybe to be cabin crew members, who don't yet know what opportunities are out there? What message would you share with them?
I think there is this why people are so afraid or are so they think that it's really hard to join an airline because they don't know how it is. Some people even think that you just send an email to, I don't know, aviation, and they just assign you to one airline. And of course, it doesn't work like this. So I think definitely do your research. Of course, always read the requirements of the desired position that you are searching for. And if you just remotely fit into it, do your research.
And that's such a strong message to share with young people and the next generation of aviators looking to get into the industry. Gerardo, thank you for joining Airtime today. It's been great speaking to you, and I know that many people watching will find this interview uplifting and insightful. And that brings us to the end of this Airtime interview, but stay tuned for more exclusive content throughout this special week celebrating the life and work of flight attendants all around the world. Thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Jonga, and you've been watching Airtime. Goodbye.